But I do think the Sussex overdrive is unbelievable. But I mean, I don't think that he is going to get back in, which showed that he is very commercially minded, which we'll get into later on, which
Yeah.
makes it impossible for him. And of course, Meghan wouldn't come back to Britain.
Harry and Meghan the other side, smiling and all the rest of it.
Is that Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Right.
The Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast. They don't generate any money. And I don't see where she is going from here. I think she has a major problem.
It was Meghan speaking, and now we know it's Meghan speaking again. And so this isn't because the book contains that her brand was in great trouble. American Riviera Orchard, that she had allegedly nicked the idea. She wanted wealth and she wanted fame. And she targeted, there's no doubt she targeted Harry.
And that was very critical because at that moment last year, she was about to promote her Netflix series and didn't want to firstly be seen with Harry, and secondly didn't want to go somewhere where she'd appear cheap. Declining. I think that his reputation is somewhat toxic, and I think Invictus is his only lifeline, and that's what she used as a weapon at the time. So there were quite a few things about her personal life. I'll work them into another book, I think. Meghan didn't like the surname Mountbatten-Windsor. If you remember, in her first lifestyle series with Meghan with them forever, she says to Carling that her surname isn't Markle but Sussex. And she was desperate to get it. She said we never had a proper surname. Of course they did.
By not telling the palace what she's going to do. And I think the most interesting story is the Reitman story. Reitman's is like a Marks and Spencer's in Canada.
In Revenge, you talk about how Meghan's lack of knowledge about British history meant she could not understand that Diana had won the public's affection.
She was warned before she married what the nature of being Harry's wife and part of the royal family would be, and the nature of how she ignored all that advice for two reasons. One is she really did believe she could do what she wanted, and secondly, I don't believe she ever intended to stay. She always intended to take the title, take the connections, and get back to California.
You know that moment when a public image doesn't just crack, it completely shatters? Well, according to Tom Bower, that moment for Meghan Markle has already arrived. For years, Meghan built this perfectly polished brand, crafted around hardship, emotion, and her own story of being mistreated and misunderstood. She played it beautifully, the outsider, the underdog, the woman who conquered cruelty with grace. But Bower, one of the most feared biographers alive, says that image was built on a foundation of smoke and mirrors, and the truth is finally catching up. This isn't just another headline. It's the kind of revelation that makes even her most loyal supporters pause. Because when Tom Bower speaks, people listen. He doesn't trade in whispers, he trades in facts. And what he's about to uncover doesn't just bruise Meghan's public persona, it tears it wide open.
To suit Meghan's agenda, and Meghan's living with Meghan is very different than living with Kate and William. Meghan has a completely different attitude, and I think California has a different attitude. So I think we're now seeing a different Harry, and to his misfortune, it's not a Harry that appeals to the same sort of people in the same numbers as previously.
His new claims don't just expose inconsistencies, they expose strategy. Bower says Meghan didn't merely stretch the truth, she engineered it. Every timeline, every emotional speech, every tear-filled anecdote, it was all curated. She didn't just tell stories, she redesigned them. He accuses her of monetizing royal connections, rewriting childhood hardships, and painting herself as the eternal victim every time her own decisions backfired. The words truth and performance are no longer interchangeable. Meghan, according to Bower, blurred those lines until people couldn't tell where the actress ended and the Duchess began. But now, the performance is crumbling.
What Meghan never really understood, probably not even now, is that when she was cheered as a working royal, it wasn't because she was Meghan Markle, it was because she represented British royalty.
And the world is finally seeing through the act. Bower calls this the collapse of the brand, the moment when illusion collides with reality. The storyline, the fantasy, the victimhood, it's all unraveling. And once the mask slips, it never fits the same again. Today, we're breaking down exactly what Tom Bower revealed and why his evidence is leaving Meghan's empire shaking.
I think there was that, but I've got to tell you, my research for my new book, the number of times she was warned before she married what the nature of being Harry's wife and part of the royal family would be, and the nature of how she ignored all that advice. For two reasons. One is she really did believe she could do what she wanted.
Let's be clear, Tom Bower isn't another talking head tossing opinions from the sidelines. He's the man the powerful fear. The man who's made careers crumble and PR teams panic. For decades, he's dug where others wouldn't dare, interviewing silenced voices, uncovering receipts, exposing hypocrisy from boardrooms to Buckingham Palace. His books on world leaders and billionaires didn't just rattle cages, they tore them apart. And here's what everyone forgets Meghan and Harry. The couple famous for suing over headlines, jokes, even social media posts, never sued him. Not once. Because Tom Bower doesn't just talk, he proves. He documents, he verifies, and when he points a finger, he has evidence in his other hand.
Meghan loves money. Meghan's very commercial. She doesn't want to be poor. And then having got all that, she then saw how she needed a consort, a husband who's going to take her to the next stage. And she was on a manhunt, there's no doubt. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being on a manhunt. There are women hunts too, but I mean, she was determined.
He's not emotional, not vindictive, just relentless. Every word he writes is backed by witnesses, emails, records, timelines, contradictions, and first-hand accounts. That's why this new wave of revelations hits harder than any critic ever could. This isn't gossip, it's confirmation. And according to Bower, the cracks began the moment Meghan and Harry decided to monetize the Queen's private nickname. He calls it one of their lowest moments, the point where respect gave way to profit. Imagine this. They purchased the Lily domain name before even telling the Queen about their daughter's birth. That name, Lilibet, wasn't a brand. It was sacred. It belonged to the Queen's childhood, a name used only by her parents, her husband, the people she loved most. But to Meghan and Harry, it became a trademark opportunity. When Harry claimed he'd asked the Queen's permission, the palace quietly corrected the record, and the truth was brutal. He didn't ask, he announced it. The Queen was furious. For the palace to publicly contradict Harry meant the evidence was undeniable. Even when Harry's team threatened to sue the BBC for reporting it, the palace stood firm. Do not apologize. What we said is true. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a revelation of intent. Meghan and Harry weren't treating the monarchy as heritage, they were treating it as a business. Bower says this was the first real sign of their credibility collapse. And if there's one story that perfectly captures Meghan's rewriting of reality, it's her treatment of her father. Bower reveals that Meghan's self-told tale of growing up poor, eating cheap meals, struggling alone, it simply doesn't hold up. Her father, Thomas Markle, paid for private schools, dance classes, photography lessons, designer clothes. He funded her education, her auditions, her car, her dreams. He was there, every step of the way. But as Meghan's fame grew, that version of her childhood didn't fit the self-made survivor narrative anymore, so she rewrote it. Her father wasn't useful to the new image, so she erased him. Even her now famous soap commercial activism story, the one that made her sound like a born humanitarian, Bower says there's no proof it ever happened. No letters, no response, no record. Her father even admitted he never mailed such a letter. The story was cinematic but not real. To Bower, this wasn't family estrangement, it was marketing, a brand makeover at the expense of truth. Then came the Oprah interview, the glossy, primetime confessional meant to crown Meghan and Harry as victims of a cold, heartless monarchy. But Bower says it did the opposite. He found 17 factual inaccuracies in that interview. 17. From Meghan's claim that they secretly married 3 days before the royal wedding, the Archbishop himself confirmed they didn't, to the insinuation that Archie was denied a royal title because of his race, Bower dismantled it all. The rules for titles were written long before Meghan arrived, and they had nothing to do with race. Even her claim of being denied help when she was struggling emotionally was contradicted by palace logs, proof she had access to doctors and professional support. The interview wasn't a truth bomb, it was a story that exploded in their own hands. Then there was the Australia tour. On camera, it looked like a fairy tale, adoring crowds, glowing headlines, flawless photos. But behind the scenes, Bower says Meghan behaved like a Hollywood celebrity, not a royal. Staff described tantrums, last-minute demands, even a tea-throwing incident that left aides stunned. The turning point, Bower says, wasn't her behavior, it was her belief. Meghan convinced herself the cheers were for her, not the monarchy. She saw herself as the new Diana, a global star overshadowing everyone else. And when she realized she'd always ranked below William and Catherine, reality turned to resentment. That's when the exit plan began, long before Netflix, long before Oprah, long before the "we had to leave" tears. One of Bower's most explosive claims comes from the Queen's funeral. While the world watched what looked like reconciliation, Harry and Meghan walking beside William and Catherine Bower says the truth was shocking. At that exact time, their Netflix series was already filmed, edited, finalized, and loaded with attacks on the family. They were smiling for cameras, shaking hands with mourners while knowing their pre-recorded words accused Charles of lying, William of screaming, and the palace of cruelty. Bower calls it cold, calculated duplicity, pretending peace while preparing betrayal. He says they pulled the same stunt at Prince Philip's funeral, acting united in public while privately plotting their next public strike. This wasn't grief, it was strategy. And perhaps the most eerie part of Bower's findings is Meghan's obsession with becoming the new Diana. The way she mimicked her late mother-in-law's clothing, poses, jewelry, and emotional tone wasn't coincidence, it was imitation. Bower even claims Meghan and Harry asked Diana's brother, Earl Spencer, if they could use the Spencer surname for their own family, not as a tribute, but as branding. Meghan reportedly said Mountbatten Windsor didn't fit her children. She wanted the power of the Spencer name, the tragedy, the legacy, the prestige. Earl Spencer refused immediately. Bower saw that refusal as symbolic, Diana's own family distancing themselves from Meghan's manufactured mythology. She wanted the glow of Diana's legend without the substance of what made Diana loved: humility, empathy, service. And just as Bower predicted, the collapse wasn't instant. It was gradual, visible, and irreversible. Hollywood was the first to back away. Producers stopped calling. Invitations vanished. Studios didn't want to risk royal backlash or constant controversy. Then the media began shifting too. Magazines that once praised her started fact-checking. Vanity Fair, The Cut, The Hollywood Reporter, they all cooled off. Spotify publicly ended their deal, calling them not productive partners. Netflix reduced their projects. Their charities' financials dwindled. Public approval tanked both in the UK and the US, and in Australia, the once-adored Duchess became a punchline. And Tom Bower says none of it was sabotage, it was consequence. Not racism, not jealousy, just people finally seeing the pattern. Every inconsistency, every contradiction, every tearful speech that didn't match the facts they added up. Meghan didn't lose support in one scandal, she lost it one lie at a time. Bower's conclusion is devastating. He says Meghan's downfall isn't about making mistakes, it's about refusing to stop making the same ones. Rewriting history, shifting blame, playing the victim, and when the evidence piles up, attacking anyone who challenges her story. The royal bridges are burned. Hollywood's interest is fading. The sympathy card has expired. And now, Bower says, Meghan faces the one thing she can't control: the truth. Because she built a global brand on an illusion, a version of herself too fragile to withstand reality. And once the truth comes out, no PR team, no tearful podcast, no Netflix special can put it back together. Tom Bower believes the next year will be the most revealing yet, not because Meghan will speak, but because the world is finally done listening. And yet, Tom Bower says we've only seen the beginning of Meghan's unraveling, because behind every new project, every glossy rebrand, every carefully lit photo, there's one thing that never changes the story, always circles back to Meghan being wronged. And after years of repetition, even her supporters are starting to roll their eyes. He points out that when the sympathy, runs dry, Meghan reaches for the same formula: a new emotional revelation, another carefully edited interview, or a tearful confession that reframes her as the misunderstood heroine. But the difference now is that people aren't just consuming her words, they're cross-checking them. They're comparing the timelines, the photos, the receipts. And when the dots don't connect, it's no longer about misunderstanding, it's about manipulation. Tom Bower's sources say Meghan still sees herself as the architect of a new royal era, someone destined to redefine modern royalty on her own terms. But the irony is brutal. In trying to escape the control of the firm, she built her own version of it, an empire where image matters more than truth, and branding replaces authenticity. Every post, every podcast, every headline is weighed for narrative impact. But as Bower says, you can't control a story forever when the facts keep escaping. He describes Meghan as a serial reinventor, the woman who adapts faster than any public figure he's studied. When one image cracks, she paints another. When one cause fades, she adopts a new one. From activist to Duchess, from victim to visionary, from Hollywood darling to royal exile, she morphs endlessly. But somewhere in that transformation, Bauer says the real Meghan disappeared, and the world is starting to notice. Even insiders who once defended her are now distancing themselves. Friends who once vouched for her character stay silent. PR experts whisper that the compassion narrative has expired and the power couple brand is no longer marketable. Major studios quietly shelve collaborations. Even lifestyle brands that once courted her image are moving on, afraid of becoming part of another media storm. Bauer says this silence from her former allies is louder than any headline. It's not just career decline, it's reputational fatigue. The public isn't outraged anymore. They're indifferent. And that, in the world of celebrity, is fatal. According to Bauer, Meghan's final undoing won't be a scandal, it'll be invisibility. When the spotlight turns away and the audience stops reacting, the brand she built on constant attention will wither. The tragedy, he says, is that Meghan Markle could have had everything: legacy, love, respect, but she chose validation over truth. And once you lose the world's trust, you can never buy it back, no matter how loud the next story is.